All right, we're back. Sprinkler Repair Pros podcast, episode 6. We're here today with Kevin Atkinson. Mike and I both have known Kevin since high school. Longtime friend, local, grew up in Pecan Grove, Fort Bend County. Incredible guy. This is going to be, in my opinion, one of the coolest stories that we may ever do. Kevin is, I'm going to let Kevin tell his story, but we're excited to have you here, man. Thanks for coming today. It's been a long time, like you were saying before. We haven't gotten together in a while, so we'll just jump right into it. Kevin, tell us a little bit first off about your personal life, and then then we'll kind of jump into your business, Texas Pride Disposal, and go from there.
Yeah, absolutely, man. As you said, born and raised Pecan Grove. Parents still out there. They're celebrating their 40th anniversary here in actually I think tomorrow.
Wow.
So need to make sure that date's right next month. Born and raised out there. Pecan Grove Elementary, Garcia, Austin High School.
Cougar Cubs are number one.
Number one, we get the best from everyone.
We do.
So went off to LSU after I graduated from high school. Spent 4 years in Louisiana. Absolutely loved it. And then came back to Houston after I graduated, and been here ever since, man.
Awesome, man.
So,
Yeah, I know he's probably one of the biggest LSU Tiger fans that exists.
Go Tigers.
I'm surprised you don't have purple and yellow on today.
Save that. You don't know what my underwear look like.
I don't wear the socks. There's no socks. So.
Hey, too much info, don't ask, don't tell.
Awesome, man. Well, tell us a little bit, obviously I know your story, some of your story leading up to the past couple of years, but tell us a little bit about how, what it is about the trash industry. Kevin owns a company called Texas Pride Disposal. Tell us about how you got into trash and what was your motivation as a young child to get into the trash business.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a weird fascination, I guess, to have. I think most people that we knew, you guys probably had no idea growing up, but like I've always had this like kind of odd fascination with garbage trucks and the business. Probably the only people that knew that were the kids on the street I grew up with, Ben Taylor, Roger Vasquez, and then, Malgren, my best friend growing up as well.
All good guys.
So, but, outside of that, I always kind of had this strange fascination with garbage trucks. I had, toy trucks as a little kid, and they always caught my eye. And so, in high school, I'd sack groceries at Kroger and Sugarland, making $5 an hour. Worked at Hollywood Video. For those of you who don't know what it is, it's a video rental store. They don't exist anymore.
VHS tapes, right?
Yeah, VHS tapes,
Wow.
Exactly. DVDs.
Yeah.
He might not look as old as he is. He looks 20. He looks 20, but trust me, he's older than that.
But, I went off to college my freshman year and came home for the summer, and I needed a job, and I didn't want to sack groceries for $5 an hour. I interviewed actually with City Sugarland for a summer school counselor or something, and that interview went absolutely terribly, which is great because I got home a little dejected from that, and I just said, you know what, I'm just going to call the number on my parents' recycling bin. See if they have anything open, and I think that was a Thursday, and the next Monday I was on the back of a garbage truck throwing trash for WCA. So I started, spent that entire summer on the back of the garbage truck. I came home after the first day, and I told my parents, I said, this is the hardest thing I've ever done.
Wow.
I don't know if I can do this. And my parents said, you've talked about this literally your entire life. Give it a week, see where it goes. And, I got a better feel for it as the week went on. Went out there after spending a year at LSU, enjoying LSU significantly. As Cody said in one of your previews, eating a lot of Raising Cane's, doing a lot more than that, going to the bars a lot. But came home, and that first Monday in May, it was 94 degrees outside, and we went out and picked out 27 tons of garbage out of Champions Forest. And so I was dead, man. I was exhausted, but came home, learned how to pace myself throughout the week, stuck with it for the summer. It was WCA. There were two brothers that were running at the time. I owe a lot to those guys, Rick and Matthew May. But they let me come back anytime I wanted. I'd work 2 days at Thanksgiving, I'd work Christmas break.
Wow.
Mardi Gras, I'd go down to New Orleans and then come back and work 2 days because we had some time off at LSU for the holiday. To pay for all my sins from New Orleans. But I stuck with that all through college, got my license the following summer, started driving for them, and really driving Rick and Matthew nuts, asking questions every single day, picking their brain. And they were kind enough to to spend time with me almost every time I'd come knock on their door, and just be good source of information. And so at LSU, I changed my major 3 times. Started as business going into it, not really having a clue what I wanted to do. Switched it to history, thought maybe being a sports agent, lawyer type of deal would be fun. Switched it to landscape architecture, thought designing ski resorts would be fun.
Realized, I know that, that's pretty cool.
Realized there's only about 4 people in the world that do that, so that might not be a good career choice. And then, yeah, after that freshman year, on the back of the garbage truck picking their brains, I came back to school and I switched my major to business with a focus in entrepreneurship and stuck with it from there.
Wow.
So.
Incredible, man.
Wow, that's great, Kevin. Man, you say sticking with it, and those guys really, picking their brains. Like, if I could tell anybody anything, is sticking with things and riding them out and just seeing where they go. Your parents obviously gave you some good insight on that, right? Not to give up, right? When things get hard, giving up, persevere. I mean, you've had to do it a number of times with your business. I know for sure with just, employees, retention. I know you told me at times you would jump on the truck if you had to, or, sending, when I owned my coffee shop, I'd call you. And I remember one time a guy came in a pickup truck and just pick up the trash, just making it happen, like we do, Jason, at Sprinkler Repair. You gotta make it happen. You gotta consistently put in that drive and that grind, and people respect you, right? Your employees respect that too.
Oh yeah.
I would assume.
Yeah, when you're doing it on your own like that, and even not necessarily your own, when you're dedicated to your customer like that, or the job like that, especially as an entrepreneur, you don't have anybody to lean on. It's yours. It's your responsibility, and it's your responsibility to
Your
make
pride.
sure that the job gets done.
Yeah,
Exactly. And so, to your point, my parents pushing me through, that's a moment in time that I think at the time I really was probably exhausted, just went straight to bed at 7:30. But looking back, that's a memory that will always stick in my head, and grateful for my parents for a lot of reasons for pushing me the way they did, not just in that moment, but through school, through Texas Pride. But yeah, to your point, man, I mean, it's a theme of anyone in business, any entrepreneur. There's always going to be something that pops up. We're not here just to sit here and ride and do nothing. We're here because things are going to go wrong and they need to be managed. And so with that, perseverance is a key trait, I think, of who we are, and all the challenges that we've seen throughout the years. The pandemic was interesting for us. We're the 5th most dangerous industry in the United States, and we've definitely had some issues that have spurned from that all the way through a fatality.
Wow.
A few fatalities actually through my entire career. It's just part of the business of what we do.
Wow.
But yeah, perseverance is it's a part of the puzzle for sure.
Yeah, man.
Well, let's I guess tell us a little bit about how you went from, I know I'll let you kind of tell more about it, but I know after you graduated, right, you came back and you started working again at WCA, right? What was your position there? How long were you there for? And then at what point did you transition from that to becoming an entrepreneur?
Yeah, absolutely. There's real value in the saying, it's not what you know, it's who you know. I'd spent 3 years working for WCA in the field, driving trucks, throwing trash, and after I graduated, I'd had a job lined up in Baton Rouge when I graduated in 2008, but 2008 the economy fell apart, and 2 weeks before graduation I got a phone call that said, hey, we're not gonna be able to bring you on board. It was with another waste company in Louisiana. Was a tough call to get 2 weeks before graduation, just kind of thinking everything was on cruise control, ready, set to go to work, gonna get to stay in Baton Rouge, continue to kind of have a good time. But came back to Houston, started looking for a job, started calling everybody and anybody. Waste Management's headquartered here in Houston, tried to get in the door there, just knocking on doors. And ironically, WCA, who I'd been with, I couldn't get anybody to really listen to me to possibly get on board with them. And I went to a party like one weekend, and Jordan Lawley was there.
Oh,
and Jordan's, I believe it's a stepdad or brother-in-law or some family affiliation, was related to the founder of WCA, one of the 2 founders.
Wow.
And so we started talking, and he said, give me your resume. I sent it to him. He sent it over to his relation, and 2 weeks later I was in the office on Friday and interviewing, and they basically said, hey, you got a job. We don't have a position for you. We're just gonna put you in training, figure out what you want to do, what you're good at, and we'll go from there. And so I started work on, I guess you call it the corporate side for WCA in July of 08. I was just in training July through October. October 1st, we started the City of Wharton's contract. It was 5 employees and 3 lines of business, and I was directly over that. And it was a good little kind of first way of dipping my toe into some responsibility. And then in August of 2009, September of 2009, the gentleman I had worked for, Rick and Matthew May, left and started a company called Best Trash. Everybody probably sees their trucks floating around the area. And I took over the residential division for Houston.
God,
so
that's incredible. So at probably like, what, 22 years old, you were running, 22, 23, you were running that.
22 or 23, something like that.
Wow.
23, I believe.
And I will say, right about that time, you got me one of my first commercial contracts maintaining the properties for
Yeah.
WCA.
Yep.
And I didn't even know about sales tax at one point. What ended up happening, long story short, was WCA got audited, and like companies do. And then I got a phone call from someone at WCA. Hey, you don't put sales tax on any of our invoices. Is there I was like, oh, it's included. And I don't know who I was probably talking to, an accountant or somebody like that.
Yeah, it's included.
And what do you know, like 3 or 4 months later, the comptroller comes knocking, and
Oh, yeah.
so thank you.
Yeah.
Man.
I learned a lesson, but Kevin, there was a point where Kevin was about to leave, and he was like, we need to lock this contract in for a couple of years here
Yeah.
before I head out. And so
Yep.
I was like, thank you, man. But anyway, it was a good opportunity. You kind of set me up with that as well too. So
People help people.
so how long were you there in that role before you started to do your own thing?
Yeah, so that was like I said, I think it was September of 2009. I was there. It was about a year and a half later. Kind of took over, started to get involved in all of our lines of business. That was really just residential. Started to focus on commercial and roll-off work as well. Commercial, the dumpsters behind businesses, roll off the business, the large containers at construction sites. Became the assistant general manager for the Houston market, and then ultimately that was in 2011, I believe that happened, and then 2012 WCA was sold to an investment firm. They said nothing's going to change. Everything changed, and I kind of started to reevaluate my position and my opportunities. I was potentially going to be sent to Searcy, Arkansas, which, born and raised in Houston. Nothing against Searcy, Arkansas, but way too small of a town for me.
Never even heard of it.
Yeah, it's exactly. And so, I'd written a business plan in a couple of my classes at LSU, and I kind of started to dust that off and think about, what it might look like to really kind of start Texas Pride. I had never thought I would be starting that as early as I had the opportunity to do, but started to think about that. And then in November of 12, my GM, who I reported directly to, was let go with kind of a cost-cutting type deal. And he had been in the business for about 30 years, and I knew he was well connected, and he had a company car. I had to drive him home, about an hour and a half drive from Sugar Land to Huffman. And on the ride, he's calling everybody, and these MFers, yada yada, and let him get all that out of them. And I say to him, I said, hey, I never really told anybody, but I've got a degree and a focus in entrepreneurship, and if you want to do something, I'd love to do something with you.
Wow.
Again, I knew he was well connected. I knew he needed to keep working for some health reasons. And so he said, hey, let's get through the holidays. This is right before Thanksgiving. So let's get through the holidays, and I'll call you at the beginning of next year to see if this is really something you want to do. And he called me like January 2nd. He said, you really want to do something? And I said, yeah, I do. And he said, give me a list of some small companies that we might be able to go out and buy, and I'll do the work. I was still working at WCA. He said, I'll do the work, the homework, keep you posted on it, and then we'll go from there. So I gave him a list, and he did exactly that. And
wow.
Fortunately, somebody wanted to listen, but M&M, Fort Bend Garbage out in Rosenberg. M&M's the company they started in Sealy. Mike Fisher, great guy. Fort Bend Garbage out in Rosenberg had been around for 30 years. They serviced basically that 359, 723 corridor out there. They had about 1,100 subscription customers. They were willing to listen to my partner, and got a deal done, and kind of moved forward from there. So end of July 2013, Texas Pride Disposal was born with, I say 2.5 trucks, 5 employees, 1,100 subscription customers, doing about $500,000 a year in revenue.
So 2 questions for you that you can kind of elaborate on. Number 1, to make that acquisition,
Yep.
how did you make that happen? Did you have the money in the bank? Did you have to raise money? And then also too, what was at the time, what was the partnership agreement? Was it like a 50-50 type thing? How did that work out for you guys?
Yeah, so in 2013 when I started the company, I was 27, and I did not have any money to my name at the time. It just was one of those things that I had done well at WCA. I had moved up quickly. I had done well with bonuses and stuff, but at the time, I'd been working for all of 4 or 5 years, and so not a significant amount saved up. My partner with the company, him and I both reached out to resources to kind of fund this transaction. It wasn't a significant amount for either of us to run. It was a real number for sure, 6 figures for both of us to raise. But I was fortunate from the standpoint of having a pool of friends and family members to kind of tap the shoulder of to help with this. That's a big ask, man. A lot of responsibility very quickly when you've got especially family involved and you go ask for a significant amount of money to go and start a business that, let's be real, most businesses fail. And
so 95% of them don't even make it 5 years.
Yeah, they'd be better off putting it in the stock market and letting it run. But that blind faith and ultimately just a passion for what I was doing, translated to ultimately a good investment return for everybody. But it was definitely a leap of faith and a faith in me, which I'll forever be grateful
100%.
for.
Even though it was family and close friends,
Right.
If they didn't believe in you as a
Right.
person and as your business plan,
Right.
people who have disposable income to invest in companies are not just going to give it over willingly, right?
No.
You got to have a business plan, a business model. Again, like you said, you had a partner who had 30 years in the industry, who had connections. So, obviously there was a sense of trust in you, because there's no guarantee when you invest in a business.
Oh, yeah.
There's no guarantee you're ever going to get paid back.
Yeah.
Whatsoever.
Right.
And even if you do, it could be 20 years, it could be 10 years.
Yep.
Most companies are not giving dividends.
Yep.
They're just, hey,
Right.
you keep the money. If you want to pull it out and you don't have it, too bad type thing. So
Yep.
obviously it speaks a lot to your character. And I can speak on your character. Mike can speak on your character because I've known you for so long. Your parents are incredible people in that community that we grew up in. If you mention the Atkinson name, everybody knows you're good people. Even like your uncle and your cousins, through the Kajanders.
Oh, yeah.
I ended up meeting your uncle and some of your cousins and stuff like that as well through them. But long story short, that's an incredible situation to be 27 years old and be able to say, hey, this is what we're trying to do, and then be able to make it happen. So you make that happen, you and your partner. What's the breakdown there with that? And then how did you go from 2.5 trucks and 5 employees to where you're at? I know at one point in time it was 100 trucks and
Yep. Yeah, so we were 50-50 on paper. I had the voting rights for my, I guess, essentially note holders or shareholders in our side of it. They it was equity that they had in it, but I retained their rights. And so on paper, 50-50 partners. At the time I had given away, I think, 22% of it as the buy-in for it, interest on those notes as well. But 50-50 on paper, and we come into it, and first day show up to the yard, got a truck broken down in the shop.
You're down to one.
Excited about this, see what this is going to turn into. I'm walking around looking at I say 2.5 trucks. We had 2 2010 Freightliners and a 91 GMC that literally had rust holes in the side of it, pouring garbage outside.
it was a truck, but
It was a truck that, we immediately just said this isn't going to work. I went and looked in the cab, and there's like 30 flashlights rolling around in the bottom of the cabin. So our driver comes in, the guy had been with us for the entire duration of Fort Bend Garbage. And I said, what's with all the flashlights in the cab of that truck? And he said, oh, sometimes we're driving down the road at night and the headlights go out. There's a loose wire in there somewhere, so we just hold our hands out the window. And I said, yeah, we probably shouldn't run this truck anymore. So
Folsom PD must know them.
yeah, running around, and it's
Oh
those
my
things you can't make it up. But we're off and running with it from there. I expected to come out of the gate and I guess wishful thinking or whatever you want to call it, but I expected to come out of the gate. I'd come from WCA. I was piggybacking our sales guy, trying to learn all that, making the connections with people in the industry. So I expected, hey, first year we'll have 10 trucks running. We're going to come in there, and a year into it, we're still running 2 trucks. We've grown by a couple hundred homes, which was good, but it was defeating.
20% growth by standards would be good, but not necessarily what you were expecting.
For us, it was so incremental, and I just expected to be out there running. I'd met everybody I thought I needed to meet, and everybody came to me and they said it was chicken and the egg syndrome. They're like, hey, you did that, but you did that at WCA, and so we don't know if you'll be able to do this here.
100%.
Yeah.
And so we needed customers to get a reputation, and we needed a reputation to get customers, and so it really took, it took some friendly recommendations from some other people in the industry, some communities. Walker's Mark is a community we've serviced since 2014 actually, off of Kirkwood, and was that Memorial right there just south, I'm drawing a blank on the road that runs through it. But they've been a longtime customer of ours. City of Simonton's been our customer since January 2015. But it took some time to really get some momentum. And so, I went from WCA my last year there as a hotshot 27-year-old kid, maxed out my bonus, made a nice little 6-figure income that year, to making $26,000 and pouring like $35,000 of my own money into the company because we just didn't have the cash to
Countless hours, unlimited.
Wearing all the hats. I mean, it was
not paying yourself.
Driving a truck if you needed to.
I literally was the spare driver. When somebody went on vacation, I was driving. When a helper went on vacation, I was the guy in the back of the truck.
Yeah.
And my partner was, at the time, he was about 62. Again, he had needed to keep working for some health issues. He had leukemia for 20 years, but he had it in check. And so he was phone calls and making the deposits, doing all the cash and everything for us.
Yeah.
The billing side of it, but yeah, it was you're wearing every single hat in the company at that point. And I'll say from months, I think I remember sitting in my parents' house telling them, why did I do this? But months 9 to about 16, just kicking myself, thinking to myself, like, I was on this fast track at WCA, we're running up the ladder, and I made the biggest mistake of my life leaving that. And obviously it's all worked out and things have changed significantly, but yeah, it took until we started in July 2013. We had some small wins. December of 14 was Walker's Mark. Simonton and Castlewood Mud were both January 1st of 2015. Everybody, those are customers I always will take care of because they had faith in us before anybody did. And then really it was August of 15, Lakes of Bellaterra, Mud 133, another community that I'll always take care of for this reason, but they kind of were this catalyst for us to really start hitting the ground running. And from August of 15 through the end of the year, we added about 16,000 homes.
Ooh.
So that was when things really started to snowball and start running, and it got fun and it got interesting. And again, at this time, I'm still a 29-year-old kid I grew a beard out because I would go in and do sales pitches, and the first thing people would ask me is, how old are you?
Yeah.
And so, it was a lot of learning for us, a lot of, getting comfortable with what we were doing. But once we got running, man, we were really having a lot of fun with it. And it was, that's when things got to get fun. I learned that what I enjoy the most is growth and, servicing the customer, delivering that service, and being able to do that is rewarding. But seeing the company grow and expand, and not just the company, but the growth of our employees, the forward momentum that we had for them, the growth of the communities we take care of, being able to be true partners with them. That's all the stuff that I truly enjoy with what I do.
Wow.
Awesome. Well, that's another question for you here, obviously, and we'll kind of go forward, maybe come back a little bit. So at the point before, what was the most trucks in when it was just you and your partner? What was the most trucks you ever had at one point in time at that point before the transition?
We peaked Texas Pride before bringing on an equity partner. We were right at 100 trucks.
100 trucks. So, what does a trash truck cost? What are we talking
Then
about?
or now?
Before, or after?
What
Yeah.
does a trash truck cost?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, obviously, what is I know some of them are different, right? The ones with the arms.
Yeah.
What are we talking for a truck?
So we were predominantly residential, and those rear load style trucks with the guys on the back throwing trash. We were buying those for, I think when we started, about 195,000. Before COVID, they'd crept up to about 220,000, 230. Today, that same truck, 350.
So we're talking 20 million in trucks.
Yeah.
And then, okay, so then you've got a 20 million just in trucks. The maintenance on those trucks. I mean, obviously, preventative maintenance goes a long way, right? When we were doing landscape maintenance, it was like we would just run our equipment until the engines blew, and I'd be like, "But there's no oil in here." So you had to have systems in place when you go from 2 trucks to 10 trucks to 20 to 30. There has to be systems in place to cover all those bases to prevent the $50,000 expenditures. I mean, obviously, just a tire, like you said, $500 for a tire.
Right.
That's just a damn tire. And I'm sure you have 100 trucks. How many
tires
tires a week are you blowing out?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, just that, and that's just the tires. Then the oil changes, and I know you had a couple at one point, right, that like caught on fire.
Yeah.
And I mean, just charging the battery and the truck catches on fire, right? So the amount of logistics and preparation and systems that go into place, obviously the end product, throwing trash, a can in the back of a truck, anybody could do it. A high school kid could do it.
Right.
But the process is in place that allowed you to go from 2 trucks to 100. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, the trucks themselves, you kind of have to silo what we do, and I think large companies benefit for the company, but maybe a detriment to the employees themselves from siloing things almost to a specific degree. And so when I say silo, you look at our business, and sales is a line item. The accounting side of it's a piece of that puzzle. You can throw billing in there realistically. Customer service is an incredibly important piece of what we do.
CSRs,
The operation itself of physically going and getting the garbage off the ground, and then the maintenance piece of it, and really that maintenance piece of it is a truly critical piece of what we do. You think about these trucks, we drive through a neighborhood, we pick up on average 1,200 homes a day on a garbage route.
Per truck.
Which means that truck starts and stops 1,200 times on a route. So
Brakes.
you talk about the brakes, you talk about the wheels snaking through a community, picking stuff up, driving through a landfill. It's a rough putting 15 tons of waste on a truck that already weighs 34,000 pounds. It's a real deal right there. And so we spend, it's not uncommon for us, for Houston, if we, in the summertime when it's hot, to go through $150,000 in tires in a month.
A month.
So it's wear and tear, and the trucks themselves, our average, maintenance spend on them, industry average is $3,000-4,000 per truck per month. So you talk about just what's going into these, the preventative maintenance. We touch our trucks usually every 2 weeks. Oils, just check and make sure all the levels are where they need to be. Tires, full-time tire employee that literally walks the entire fleet every night, making sure trucks or tires are inflated. We employ, I believe, about 16 mechanics here in Houston. We've got a full-time, Texas Pride as a fleet manager for the entire company, maintenance manager for the Houston office. But especially when you're smaller, man, it was a challenge because that's a high dollar role that when you're running 10 trucks, you can't afford to have.
100%.
So we had a maintenance manager. We outgrew him. We used third-party maintenance for a bit. That was very expensive, but got us kind of where we needed to be. And then we brought in eventually a group on that was helping us and kind of came on full-time. We kind of outgrew them. So it's been this evolving, has to be this evolving kind of role. But maintenance for us, a lot of money that goes out the door. Our maintenance spend, industry average should be about 8% of our P&L. We're a little higher than that right now. Working on that as it moves forward, but seeing progress from there. Our fleet manager is excellent. Guy I worked with previously at WCA. So.
That's an incredibly difficult role too, because you can't, you have to be, every role as you scale to that size, the people have to be 100% on point. Because the safety, it's not just about the car breaking down, but the implications of something happening while you're on the road with a truck that weighs 40,000 pounds barreling down the freeway.
Well, and the safety's a whole nother arm, and that's a whole nother silo there. And we're fortunate that we've got an exceptional, VP of safety now as well. Safety is one that these are all things that as we grew, before this transaction with the private equity group we brought on, we had grown so quickly that it just still felt like a 2-truck operation to me. And so the one big lesson I learned was we just did not put the team members in place as we expanded. And so as we got to the
sorry to disturb you guys.
As we got to the position that we needed to with the private equity guys, we were able to kind of fill some of these roles and move forward from there. But it was definitely for us, it's a lesson I took away from Texas Pride.
It's crazy. I don't mean to cut you
Yeah.
off, but it's crazy you call them silos, because we were just talking about that, Jason. Like the
Absolutely.
different programs or standard operating procedures and all that kind of stuff, and having the guys to do it. Jason, to this day, he and I still answer the phones, right? Because we don't feel like we need that person. But
Right.
as you said, you have to get to a point where you can afford that person, but also if you're working in the business, you can't work on the business, as they say.
One of our vendors, the Waste Expo was our biggest event. We were out there last week and we had dinner with one of our vendors, and one of our vendors had said that, they're a group that's expanded very rapidly over the last few years. And he had a great point. He said, I realized that, I either needed to, as we expanded and grew, my role couldn't stay the same. I needed to shave some of that off, and I either needed to find somebody strong to take on some of that responsibility or fail. And that's really what it boils down to.
does.
You can't wear every hat. I mean,
100%.
going back to where we started, answering the phones, being on the back of the truck, stick with what you're good at. My strong point, relationships, the sales side of it. I am by no means a fleet expert, maintenance expert.
Yeah.
I am by no means a safety expert. So there's things that you need to realize that other people are better at than you are, and you shouldn't be wearing every hat. And if you are wearing every hat, hopefully you're a small business, but as you grow, bring those people on before you really need them, but you can see that coming down the pipeline, because ultimately you're really just kind of going to stagnate your own growth if you don't plan for that and put those people.
That's exactly what Mike has done for me, and for our company, Sprinkler Repair Professionals. But I will say, we've been in business 15 years now. I think you and me pretty much started our business right around the same time, right?
Yeah.
The difference is I made probably every mistake in the book. I had people before I needed them. I was overpaying people when I didn't need them, and I didn't have the skill or the knowledge to scale to where I needed them. I mean, 2 years ago, I had 2 different people answering phones for us, and they were like sitting around half the time. Now, should we have somebody right now, a CSR? Absolutely. But it's like, if I can still carry that load for a little bit, right? We're growing, we're finally making money, we're saving money, we're developing a process, it'll be time for us at some point too. But I think, like you said, for you, this is exactly why I decided, or me and Mike had the conversation. I was like, look, man, we're growing, I think this new model that I have is gonna take off.
Yeah.
And I need somebody that can help me expand. We're talking about expanding to, other markets inside of the city, up north, east, so on and so forth, and can't do that alone. So Mike's in the process right now of obviously holding me accountable. The guys will talk to him and say, hey, Jason's been telling me he was gonna do this, he hadn't done it. And he holds me accountable, I hold him accountable, and it's allowing us to really kind of explode. And
believe me, man, by no means this was baptism by fire. They don't teach all this stuff in school, even folks in entrepreneurship at LSU. I mean, a great place to get that degree, get that focus. But once the rubber hits the road, it's baptism by fire. We've paid some fines for simple things that we weren't doing right. We've had headaches through the years with different circumstances. It's all 2020 in the rear view mirror, but you learn from it, you move forward, and you're better for it as you go forward. But especially you and I both starting businesses at 27. I was blessed to be at WCA, learn as much as I could from them. Would I have been in a better position had I started the company at 37 versus 27? Probably so.
Yeah.
But would you be where you are today at 38?
No.
Absolutely not. You'd probably be with 2 trucks, right, trying to scale it, because it takes time to get that. But like you said, once you get the ball rolling, you said Bellaterra was kind of like a catalyst for you, right? and getting that growth and just kind of moving with it and moving forward with it. So I know you can tell us, the listeners, if you don't know who Texas Pride Disposal is in Houston, you've been living underneath a rock. Their trucks are everywhere, but
the LSU truck, the Astros truck.
There's 2 trucks. They have 1 truck that Kevin's, like I said, is probably the biggest LSU Tiger in the world. What do you think about Tommy White, Tommy Tanks?
Hey man,
He's a beast.
You know what I'm talking about, right? The baseball player, that guy's incredible. I think his name's Tommy White.
Paul Skeens is that guy's crushing it. He's great start for Pittsburgh last.
He has like the 7 hardest pitches from any starter of the year. He's had 1 start.
I mean, I got a little story I want to say, and I don't know if Kevin remembers this or not, but one of my former business partners used to service his community, and he used to have glass water jugs that he would sit out for the water company to get. One time, your trucks were picking up in his neighborhood, and you said it was trash day, but he also had his water jugs out there because I think it was natural spring water. I forgot what the company was, and they tossed them. They tossed all of them, and he called me. He's like, man, Texas Pride. Why did they throw my stuff away? They weren't supposed to do that. And I said, if it was any other trash company, I probably couldn't call the owner and tell him what happened, and he's gonna figure it out. And guess what? And lo and behold, I called you. He's like, for real, man? He's like, oh, dang. And you cut him a check back, and it's just one of the things that it just, you've always been about your customers, talking about Lakes of Bellaterre, assignments, and I feel like, and even in our business, right, Jason, the customers that we've had for a long time, just reaching back out to them and showing their gratitude for taking a chance on you when you first started. I mean, that's huge in business, that, retain your customers. You always want new ones, right, for the show growth, but you always want to retain because that's your core.
100%.
That's where you started.
Yep.
So something I want to kind of touch on too, this kind of brings me into that, retaining customers. So in any business, there's turnover. We're talking about customers, we're talking about team members. Kevin and I had a conversation on the phone. It's been years, but I think it was like a Monday, and Kevin's like, man, I need 15 drivers. And I remember that blew my mind, because I was like, well, I probably needed a couple guys at the time too, but I'm like, these are CDL guys, right? These are licensed guys. Right. Not anybody can drive a trash truck, you know what I mean? And so, how do you, as you scaled this company, how did you keep up with the demand? Obviously HR, everybody knows what HR is, but how did you keep up with the demand, for the mechanics? Because not every mechanic can work on a trash truck. I mean, in theory they can learn, but you got to have guys who are on top of their game. I mean, what was your strategy and Texas Pride's strategy for, scaling? Let's just say, for example, you go out and you win a new contract and it's, 20,000 homes and it starts the 1st of next month. How do you can't just service them with what you already have, maybe part of it, but you got to get new people, right? You got to get the trucks, you got to get the team, unless you have trucks who only have partial routes.
Yep.
But what's the goal for that? How did you make that happen?
Yeah, no, when we started to grow in 15, we ended up doubling in size 3 straight years. And so there came to a point in at the beginning of 2018, we started 70,000 houses.
Ooh.
January 1st.
New contracts.
Yeah, I'm sorry, 70,000 was the growth. That year, 21,000 homes we started January 1st of 2018.
Damn.
And I remember going to meetings and just sitting there thinking to myself, I hope we don't win this one. I gotta catch my breath on this. And so, the joke was with our truck company. We were ordering trucks and we had rentals in place while we were growing, and the goal was always to get the rentals out of the fleet, but by the time the new trucks would show up, I still needed the rentals to maintain the growth. But yeah, there was definitely a point where the growth was so strong that we were starting to sit there and say, this is becoming somewhat problematic, and the last thing you want is an issue with a new customer or an existing customer that is going to be a blemish on the reputation. And so we were able to maintain through that. One of the benefits of being a small business is you just don't carry the overhead of some of the larger companies. And so with that, we were always able to pay our guys a little bit better to come over and work for us. Now, granted, we probably run a heavier route than most companies, so it was kind of a combination of you're going to do a little more work for us, but we're going to take care of you on the backside of it. And I do feel like I'm nothing without those guys on the back of the truck and those drivers. And so we always try to do a good job of taking care of our guys. We would pay them. Most companies pay vacation on a 5-day schedule. Our guys work a 6-day schedule, so we pay them vacation on that 6-day schedule. Just trying to be as flexible. We did, for a long time, we did personal loans to our guys, and we'd have upwards of $30,000 out in personal loans for our guys, which, when you're getting a paycheck week to week, sometimes you need that extra bump in the middle of it. but really taking care of those guys.
Wow.
And so it's a tight community. Those guys talk. We would give our guys referral bonuses. You bring somebody on board, we'll pay you, depending on the time, $100, $500, $1,000. Pay the guys to come on board when we needed it. A lot of our real challenges were felt through the pandemic and just some of the unique circumstances we had through there. Going into the pandemic in the beginning of 2020, at the end of 2019, my original partner, my original partner got sick in 16 and passed away. He had a gentleman who bought him out, who had been in the business again for a very long time. My mentor, Jerry Karushka, had been at Waste Management for 25 years, worked his way up from, site manager to running the entire Western United States for Waste Management at one point.
Wow.
Co-founded WCA with Tom Faccio, grew that to a $350 million company. And so with us, it was good to have that kind of leadership on the backside and a mentor to really talk to. I do think that's key as well, having somebody strong to rely on that's done it and kind of give some guidance. But bought Jerry out at the beginning of 2020. We were performing at the time well enough that our bank financed that transaction. It was good for him, good for me. And then the pandemic happened, and not good for the company, not good for our customers collectively. Really tightened up our ratios, leverage especially. And so as we started to navigate the pandemic, we see this surge in volume go to the curb. We don't get paid for the waste that goes out. We just get paid by the house. And so it doesn't matter if you put 5 pounds or 500 pounds at the curb, we pick that up and take it away. Disposal is, outside of labor, our second largest cost. Between labor and disposal, sometimes that number will be 60% of our P&L.
Ooh.
So,
and then 8% on maintenance, so you're already on about 70% just on those 3 items.
Adds up quick. And so we went from picking up, volume for residential garbage, even since the pandemic has kind of faded away, is still about 20% higher than it was pre-pandemic. At its peak, it was about 42% higher because people were sitting at home. You weren't putting it in a dumpster behind the office. You weren't putting it in a dumpster at the baseball game.
Gas
All
station.
that volume was going.
Yeah.
Amazon's delivering packages to
Amazon's
everybody.
delivering everything now.
Yeah.
Uber Eats is showing up with all their stuff.
Yeah.
So all this stuff ended up at the curb for us to pick up. So we deal with that. 21, we have the freeze here. We pick up on average about 35,000 tons a month of garbage in Houston. The first month we picked up 65,000, all volume that we're taking care of paying on our own. So cash is just going out the door. And then in 21, we have the labor shortage. At the peak of it, a third of our routes were not covered because we didn't have the people for it. And when you're servicing 250,000 homes, and a third of them, you don't have a driver or the helpers for it, you want to talk about stress and trying to figure out a way to get things done. And I will say hats off to our team, because while we weren't perfect through it, we did an exceptional job. Our team did an exceptional job of navigating that, putting in the extra hours. I mean, those guys on the trucks especially, running their route and then jumping off and going to run another route to get it off the ground. Guys working until 10, 11 o'clock at night to get this stuff picked up. No offense to you guys, it's one thing to, be a day late on a sprinkler install. It's another thing to be a day late on your garbage.
Trash,
system.
yeah, you're pissed. People are pissed, yeah.
Right, yeah, so dealing with all that and navigating that, at the end of the day, again, not perfect on it, lost a few customers through that, probably helped us truthfully at the end of the day. Some of those were by choice, some of them were their choice. But gave us some breathing room ultimately on where we needed to be. And then on the backside of that, 22, the parts shortage, it was just these kind of collective culmination of just things that were occurring on top of, the asterisk for us was being tight on cash because of the transaction with my partner. And at that time, we had started a search for, we knew we needed to restructure the debt at that time, so we started a search for a new partner to help with that. It just, when you're dealing with a company this size, looking for the right partner, we had a few conversations that didn't go anywhere. Got stuck in an LOI at one point that I couldn't get out of, that wouldn't be released from. So just time burning while waiting for that, and then finally looking and landing with the capital group that we're with today that has been a blessing for us. It's really, gotten us back on our feet, moving the right direction. We're across the state now. I don't think a lot of people realize that. But it's really teed Texas Pride up to be, once again, a premier provider of waste services, not just in Houston, but in all the markets where we're in Austin, San Antonio, the Panhandle. So it's been a blessing, but it's definitely been a challenge.
So what is your current, obviously I know you still have, you said 15% ownership in that company. Are you the single largest, other than the equity company?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay, so you still have a say. What's your role now compared to what it was before?
Yeah, so I mean, like I said, as earlier, what I really enjoy is the growth side of it. And so one of the things that the capital guys, when they came on board, immediately did was we kind of built a team out. So we've got a CEO, we've got a CFO, I've got a COO, I'm the CDO, Chief Development Officer for the company. So we've built out all these positions. We built out a customer service manager. We've got a true HR manager now.
Awesome.
All these positions that before it was literally Matt Gehring, my controller, him and I, just kind of trying to make this work the best we could. And, right, wrong, and different, him and I, looking back on it, did a lot of work and did a lot of things right and did a few things wrong that, having that team behind us has really helped with. But, wouldn't be here without Matt as well, kind of getting us through the transaction, especially with the private equity guys. But, building that team out on the backside has been collectively beneficial, taking a lot off of, I think, a lot of people's shoulders.
Absolutely.
On the go forward as well. I know my life's definitely much more balanced.
Well, it strengthened the silos too, because
Right.
now you've got the CEO, the CFO,
Yep.
the HR manager. So was the private equity company, were they involved in trash at all before this, or was this their first venture into trash?
Yep.
You weren't combining, you didn't expand to other cities by combining, that's your job. Chief Development Officer is basically what a sales role, basically, right?
Correct, yeah.
Sales and growth.
They just like a lot of companies had been affected by the pandemic. They had two real main lines of work, neither of which were the environmental space. And one of those lines had been affected by the pandemic. And so they looked to diversify. They jumped into the environmental space through a investment in a brokerage firm. So really no hard assets typically. They outsourced that work to companies like ours. And then we were their second environmental space acquisition, first true I think waste company that they invested in. But the brokerage that they had owned a few hard assets in Austin, San Antonio, and Midland. And so with our transaction, they shed that off of the brokerage group to let them focus on what they're good at, which is being a brokerage, and let us focus on what we're good at, which is picking up garbage. Awesome. And so that's how we were able to acquire those assets. And then we've done another deal here in Houston since then, and the growth moving forward. Last year was a learning year. We closed in January 23 with the capital guys. Last year was I joke we got married and dated afterwards with the capital guys.
Yeah.
So last year was them really trying to figure out what they'd exactly bought, wrapping their head around that, and
you trying to figure out who bought you too.
Yeah,
at the same time.
Yeah, mutual. I mean, definitely a two-way street there. Definitely learning curve for both of us. But as it's moving forward now, it's kind of turned back on to let's go out and let's really grow this thing.
That's incredible, man. And Mike has stepped out here. He got a call, obviously, from a client. But, I mean, just from my perspective, right, as being, I consider you one of my really good friends, right? We grew up together, spent a lot of time together. TP4L, nobody knows what that means, but we'll keep that private. But, I mean, it's for me, it's inspiring to see what you've been able to do. I mean, just the logistics to get to where you were. I mean, okay, go all back to the beginning, right? You raise money, you buy this company. I mean, to go from 2 trucks, which those trucks probably were gone relatively quickly, to 100, even with some rentals in there, to find a bank or someone who's willing to loan out that kind of money, even if you're financing through the distributors, that's a big line of credit, man. The bills, the overhead cost. I know from my perspective, that weighs heavy on me, man.
Oh, yeah.
Knowing what my liabilities are each month. And, we make really good money now, but even knowing it's like, man, if we have a slow month, you just watch the bank account just go, And like, cause as an entrepreneur, a successful entrepreneur, it's nice to see the bank account grow, but
Yeah.
we all know it's not like that. It's more,
Yeah.
you know, like you're gonna go up, then you're gonna go down, then you're gonna go up, but all it takes is something like COVID.
Yep.
Boom. And like you said, the parts shortage, but a couple things that you mentioned that for me, that I'm gonna take away from this is, you know, using the rental trucks in the interim to get you to where you need, paying guys more than they need. I believe that we do that with our technicians as well too. We offer a really nice incentive package, right? Obviously benefits, health insurance,
Right.
life, all that stuff that we offer to our guys now. They don't all take it. Some of them have their own.
Yep.
We have young guys, we have old guys. Some guys are on Medicare, some guys are still on Cobra through their parents, but we offer those things. And really, as a small company competing with other more established companies, you have to create the environment. But even just the money's just 10% of it, 20% of it.
Right.
Like you said, growing like the business, and the guys are, in an instance like COVID, in an instance where everything goes, just tanks, having a team that believes in you and believes in the company. You know, I heard something, read something in a book one time where they said, hey, you know, going into COVID, you know, the options were we either lay off 30% of our labor force or everybody takes a hit.
Right.
And if you have a team that believes in you and believes in the company,
Yeah.
you're willing to, people will, in an instance where they can see what's happening. Now, if you're being shady and you're saying, oh, times are tough, we gotta cut your pay. But if everybody knows what's coming, you can get everybody on board. That's the true value in a company is, are the team members willing to work later, work
Right.
more routes, work extra hours for the greater good of everybody, knowing that, hey, if we don't service these accounts, a lot of people are gonna lose their jobs.
And that's not, that's not isolated to just the company itself, because everybody needs that, and so when you've got the guys in the field doing the actual work that know that their management is behind them and supports them, that's where they'll go that extra mile, because they know, I tell all of them, you take care of me, I'll take care of you.
Yeah.
And that's how that works at the end of the day. But on the flip side of that, you need that same support as well, because, in this role, the stress of it, especially before getting the deal done, was real. I mean, it's something that you can talk about it, but until you experience it, I mean, the challenges that we had coupled with, we've gone through, like I said, a couple fatalities in the past. You're navigating that, at our peak, we had about 34 million in debt. I had that personally guaranteed.
Wow.
So if something went wrong,
Wow.
you're staring down the barrel of a gun there.
Yeah.
You're
never
never
gonna
gonna be chasing this down.
Oh,
So having people, be able to support you. I think Matthew talked about this on one of your previous podcasts. Your family, but your family is really critical when you're in these roles, because having a support system, and my wife, God bless her, there were times that Texas Pride took priority over, it could be anything.
Yeah.
Honestly, I tell a story, the first night I went and showed up to ask her on a date, kind of formally ask her on a real date, we had a fatality. My driver, I'm driving to her place to be kind of cheesy about this, and I get a call from my supervisor. It says, we had an accident, truck flipped, and we think the driver's dead. And he was dead.
Wow.
And so, it interrupts and it takes precedent. But I always told my wife this was short-term pain for long-term gain.
Yeah,
100%.
And it's, that work-life balance is a real thing. And you don't always get that when you're an entrepreneur. But, having for me, especially my wife, talked me off some of these ledges when we were going through some of this stuff. My controller, who was seeing it from a different lens, talked me off some of these ledges. My family, my parents, my sister, just friends you can go skate with, go for beer at the bar and kind of decompress for a second.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's tough when you're in these roles, because you can't roll downhill and say, hey, I'm stressed about all these reasons, and tell your employees why you're stressed,
Right.
because that's,
Right.
it's just going to sow chaos. And so having an outlet for it is
Man.
critical, but having that support system, I mean, it's real.
I've had situations like that too, where I've, and not before we started Sprinkler Repair Professionals, when we were plantation, irrigation, landscaping, where, everything was going bad, right? I had an incident in 2021, no, I guess I was 31, so no, that was probably 7 years ago. So we'll call it 2018 or whatever. And I mean, I thought I was gonna lose everything. And, I can probably count 5 to 10 times where I've just been so down because of the decisions that I made as a business owner. And my wife has been there to say, look, I've always believed in you. I still believe in you.
Yeah.
She cashed out her 401k at one point in time when she came over to help pay for losses in the business. We all have, we've all been there, right?
Yeah.
And Mike has really when I stress out about things, Mike's like, look, man, even though I know that, hey, it's all going to change.
Sometimes it's good just having that sound.
Having somebody. There's days where me and Mike, we don't do anything other than answer the phone and sit around and just talk about the business.
Yeah.
But it's like having that person that has the experience, that's been there, that knows me,
right,
and knows my, as we call it, green tails. Say, hey, man, look, you tend to do this. You need to just focus on this. And if you're stressed out, then the team's going to be stressed out, right? And the guys can't know about it. Me and Mike, we can talk about it. The guy, they can't hear any of it. They just got to know what they need to know. Now, obviously, everybody has ups and downs in their life.
Yeah.
But when you start talking about the business, like, man, I don't know. From your perspective, like, what are we going to do? Like, now your guys lose faith in you, right? So.
Well, I'm back here and the business got to keep going. We had a couple calls come in, but we kept it going. But just touching on what you're saying is, and one thing I think we're working on too, and Jason and I, really is the culture, right?
Yeah. You
got to form that culture. It's
1,000%.
got to be a place where guys want to come, want to work. Yeah, the paycheck's there. That's fine. But we talk about it all the time. You can send a guy on a vacation and he's gonna remember that more than the big paycheck he ever got or the bonus, right? Because that's those memories you're forming and the experience. And we're really doing that. We took our guys, we had one of our our best months doing sprinkler repairs, took them to Top Golf, had a day, gave them a day off, and it's hard, I know, as a business owner, I've been there, to stop the revenue for a day, right? It's like, man, we're getting calls and we need to be there, but at the same time, that's your backbone. Those guys are your backbone, and when you do those things for them and you create that culture, they're gonna go the extra mile and stay a little bit later for you.
Yeah, absolutely. We try to do barbecues for our guys all the time. We at least 3-4 times a year. We got a guy on our team, Alex, who's been with us for 5-6 years now. He goes out and actually cooks all this stuff. We'll do 14 briskets at a time. Go out there, serve it for the guys.
Beautiful.
There's just a lot of little things that we try to do for, especially what we do, man. I mean, not everybody signs up to be a garbage.
No.
I mean, it takes a real person to sign up for this and stick with it. I mean, we've got high turnover on initial applications. Bus driver shows up, thinks they can do it, and then spends 6 hours on a garbage truck, and it's not for me.
So, I'm back to the kids.
But when you do get those guys, and especially when you get guys that can do this safely day in and day out, you really try to recognize that and take care of them, because it's again, we're the 5th most dangerous industry. We've seen a lot of things happen. It's easy to do when you got a truck that is got a big, essentially, crusher on the back of it that can do a lot of damage. You're driving a 34,000 pound vehicle through a residential community where kids are out playing. That's my biggest fear all the time. But it's always on the back of your mind. But when those guys can go out there and do things safely and do things well, you don't want to lose people like that.
No. Not at all, man.
Awesome. Well, is there anything, we're getting kind of in here, I'll touch on this. So this is a book that Kevin published. It's a poetry book, right?
Yeah.
It's called Find Yourself by Kevin Atkinson. I think you did you do this when you were in college?
College, yeah.
So you gave this to me, when was this published? I'm sure it says on here. I mean, you probably know, Kevin, 2012.
Yeah.
To everyone who has inspired me to write and anyone who has taken the time to read, thank you. So you're welcome, Kevin.
Appreciate it.
But this is just something cool. I've always held on to this. You can see it's in incredible shape still. It wasn't hard to find. I went right to my
Well, I walked
bookshelf.
in, I said, this is Kevin's book, you wrote a book. I mean, that just adds to your likeness, your coolness. I was like, man, I need to write. Man, what am I doing? I haven't written a book yet. What are we doing? Jay, you gonna write a book?
Is this available on Amazon?
That's all that. Yeah, I think it's still available. Actually, that's all that buzzed heartbreak in college. So.
Lessons learned, man. Lessons learned. But this is, in my opinion, this has been just an incredible story. Is there anything else you want to touch on? Anything we forgot? Anything else? Anyone you want to acknowledge? Anything like that?
No, again, I appreciate you guys having me out. I think it's always fun to come and just talk shop, and again, say thanks to my wife for being as supportive as she's always been.
Shout out to her, man. I met her a few times. She came when I had the coffee shop. Y'all come and hang out, drink some coffee, man. She was always down for the cause, making things happen. And when I was trying to turn things over, I was late on my bill a few times. She always called, super nice, man.
All about it, man. She was this was harder for her sometimes than it was for me. So shout out to her, my parents, my family, all my family members that have taken care of this, helped through this through the end of the day. And then just our entire Texas Pride team. I mean, it takes a team to get this done, and just
cool little
we got the cool swag.
Desk items, man. They got cool swag. Got some, man. That's what's up, man.
Back in the day, probably would have used that as like an ashtray or something. We don't need that anymore. So.
Well, man.
Awesome. Well, that was it. That's a wrap. Episode 6. Kevin Atkinson, Texas Pride Disposal. These guys are taking over not just the state of Texas. I'm sure there'll be more expansion after that. But again, thanks for coming, Kevin. This has been incredible, man. Great to see you again and hear your story, buddy.
TP for real.
Yes, sir.
Make sure to like, comment, share, and we'll talk soon. All right. Oh, man.